Namaskar. Good afternoon, everybody. I welcome you all to this post-lunch session. Now we will have a panel discussion, and we have a very distinguished panelists amongst us, and I'm really honored to have the privilege of presiding over this session, and for that I'm grateful to the organizers, especially to Secretary Maharaj and Baburaj Maharaj for giving me this opportunity. So it is befitting that even in this panel discussion, we will have discussions regarding the different facets of Indian culture. We know that Srimad Swami Abhedananda ji dedicated his life for propagating the messages of Indian culture. He did philosophy in the Western world especially. So it is important that we will also give our attention to this in the different intricacies of Indian philosophy and Indian culture. So we have 1.5 hours for this panel discussion, and we have 6 panelists. So I think we will have 15 minutes for each speaker. So I request all the panelists to stick to the time schedule, otherwise it will be very late for us. So first I welcome Professor Shorty Chatterjee, formerly head of the Department of English, Jadavpur University. Shorty is an expert in English language especially, but she is also interested in Indian culture to a large extent. So I welcome Shorty for her speech. She will be speaking on the modality of projecting the Indian profile in the West today. This is very relevant for this discussion.
Namaskar. Namaskar and good afternoon to the August Assembly. I am enormously honored and privileged to be here participating in this panel discussion. My grateful thanks for the opportunity. With your permission, may I speak from here, sitting? Well, I'll be just making a few points on the modality of projecting the Indian identity in the West in today's condition, for instance. How do we do it? Now, self-projection emerges from self-perception. Self-assertion must be preceded by self-awareness. Now, how do we perceive ourselves? That is the first question. How long have we been familiar with the idea that in contrast to the materialistic preoccupations of the West, India is a land of spiritual quest. But does it hold so easily at the present point, particularly in view of the fact that we have a colonial past, we have been colonized for a couple of centuries almost by the West, and also by the number and the magnanimity of the scams, the shameful scams around us. Does this project a spiritual identity, a spiritual profile? Well, we know that Swami Vivekananda asserted always that the essence of the Indian identity is her spiritual values. The German scholar Max Muller in India, What Can It Teach Us, as well as in many other contexts, mentioned an with deep appreciation the fact that this is the land of a group of humanity which is basically committed to spirituality. But there is that but. So today's India, does it conform? How far does it conform to that? Now, perhaps what is now called for is a re-look at the situation, an open-eyed perception, a redefining of our own identity to ourselves in the global perspective. Do we know our own history? That is one question. Do we know our own history? In the case of a millennia-old civilization, today's identity is an emergent from the history, from the long history, the hoary past. To know ourselves, we have to know the past. Do we know that? For instance, we use the term Vedic within quote marks. We use the term Vedic as a blanket cover for the ancient times. For the ancient times, blurring out the contour of a civilization spreading over thousands of years. The long history includes peak points in the Upanishads, in the Mimamsa Shastras, in the subtle discourse built by the many schools of linguistics and semantics, to name a few areas, major fields of inquiry. It also includes times of deep decadence and contraction in the phases of ritualistic preoccupation, in the Bhashya interpretation of the Vedas, in the Dharma Shastras, commentaries upon them, and in the manuals of priestcraft. As to present times, we must recognize the colonial impact, the dual aspects of the colonial experience. The dual aspect, number one being the conditioning or the foreclosure which is now almost a technical term. The foreclosure, Bankim Chandra had noted long back, and Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak has been talking about in recent times, the colonization of the mind, as post-colonial discourse phrases it. This foreclosure, as Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak uses the term, is, we know, a Freudian, Lacanian term which implies an experience of permanent conditioning, a state of the mind in which something from outside, something external, alien at the beginning, enters the consciousness, and even when it exits, it leaves a stain behind. It leaves a mark behind. And this mark is believed to be undelible. It can never be deleted. So this is the permanent conditioning of the mind. And Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak tells us that once colonized, the colonized people, the native essence, the native identity is permanently lost. It is lost forever. We can never go back to the pre-colonial state of mind. And this is what the post-colonial scholars describe as the colonization of the mind and the soul. Now this is part of our history. And of course, the reawakening, the 19th century Renaissance within quote marks again, that the confrontation brought about, the profit that we, the colonized, had made of it, as Sri Aurobindo assured we would. So now, my point is that today's India definitely emerges from all this experience, and India, emerging through the historical experience, the historical process, and reasserting its identity, its present identity is naturally much more complex than in the pre-colonial stage. That is something that is bound to happen, isn't it so? We have been through the process. There is no denying it. And why should there be any need for denying it either? So this is much more complex than in the pre-colonial period, and to reassert this identity would be more authentic and perhaps more effective. An open-eyed perception and an objective acknowledgement of the historical reality, together with a confident message of resurgence, would lend authenticity to India's self-appraisal and self-assertion. So this, I believe, should or might act as an effective guideline for presenting the Indian self in the West today. Thank you.
Thank you, Shorty, for directing our attention to some of the issues related with the post-colonial period. And we now request our second speaker, Sri Arun Ghosh, to deliver his lecture. Sri Arun Ghosh is a very renowned art critic and art connoisseur. He is the former curator, Festive of India, Government of India. So, Sri Arun Ghosh, please.
Namaskar and good evening, or I should say good afternoon. It's always difficult to speak in any session which is a post-lunch session. And it's even more difficult to speak after someone like Professor Chatterjee spoke before me. So I have only 10 minutes or maybe 15. And what I decided to do is to project the sense of art in someone who is a post-colonial character like Sri Ramakrishna. I start this, and in fact I will try to project his sense of art and what the role the art played in the whole Ramakrishna movement by starting with the concept of a temple. Thank you. না দেখলেও কোনো ক্ষতি ছিল না। So a temple, you can always read what is there on the slide, but what I'm trying to establish the fact is that a temple and a chapel is different. We can pray in any space. You can pray under a tree, you can pray in any room in your house or in your flat. But that's not a temple. A temple is a constructed space. And the essential character of a temple is to have the ability to elevate the devotee's mind. And in order to achieve that ability, in all civilization, artists, architects were engaged to build something which is bigger, larger, better, more decorative, more representative of the achievement of a particular civilization in which the temple grew. For instance, I'm starting, because I believe you all know what this particular slide shows. It is the Vatican City, the seat of Christianity in the world. And in the Vatican City, the most important building is the St. Peter's Church. We all know this. And you can see from this slide that it is bigger and better than the whole city itself. What is even more important is the fact that in this particular church, it was built by two artists. In those days, artists and architects were rolled into one. In St. Peter's particularly, the dome was built, designed and built by Michelangelo, and the colonnaded portico in front, the beautiful, a huge portico, it was designed by a sculptor called Bernini. So it establishes the fact that artists and architects in all religion were engaged to create the space like a temple, to prove what the particular civilization has achieved, how excellent it is. History of art, however, tells us that the use of art and religion usually took place many centuries after the demise of the particular prophet which started the religion. For instance, you see, the St. Peter's in Rome or the Ajanta caves in India came up much after the demise of Jesus or Buddha, not in their lifetime. In fact, in no religion do we find any example of its prophet himself to paint or sculpt. And this is very important to note in the sense that in both the cases of Islam or Buddhism, we find that Gautam Buddha himself forbade his followers to create any image of his own. In Islam, image making is a taboo. That particular aspect is of importance in our submission. Sri Ramakrishna was different. That's what we had to establish. Sri Ramakrishna was different from all other prophets, all other religions in more ways than one. He left a documentary evidence of his existence by means of photographs, by means of written words, and more important, we shall see after a few slides, some pictures. He drew some pictures. He not only sang and danced, but also painted, and I'm sure you all know this fact that he created beautiful clay models of different deities. We have read this particular aspect many times, but what I want to establish is the fact that it was his ability to create clay modeling that took the attention of Mathuranath Vishwas, and he eventually roped him in, got him engaged in the Dakshineshwar temple itself as a base Kali, or to dress the goddess Kali. In other words, it was the art of clay modeling that was primarily responsible for the Ramakrishna movement. Otherwise, Sri Ramakrishna would not have been there. Had not Mathuranath Vishwas identified the ability of his artistic skill. we all know Sri Ramakrishna himself left this message that Naren Shikhadive, Naren will teach when the world will call him to do so. But we also know that he left this comment not only verbally but also in writing. He told him and he said, no, I'm Abhedananda. He said, no, it's a hardcore way. We have read this story. But there is some importance to the fact that he also decided, Sri Ramakrishna also decided to write the same comment and then use the pictogram. You can see in this drawing, he was doing it when he was very sick. So we don't expect any very forceful drawing ability. But still, you can see, you can identify the person as Swami Vivekananda. And then, teaching him at his back is a peacock. Sri Ramakrishna identifying himself as a peacock. This symbolic representation is something that we find in these two drawings. If we call that ultimate message, then it's a penultimate message. These two drawings were drawn by Sri Ramakrishna in this room. We all know this. That's the room where he spent 14 years of his life in Dakshineshwar itself. On the northern veranda, which is normally kept closed with some chick to prevent cold air coming in, he did these two paintings on both sides of the door. And famous artist Nandalal Bose himself copied it. The drawings don't exist anymore. Both these two drawings have coded messages. Since this time is very short, I will not go into the detail of explaining what the messages are all about. But I'm quite tempted to show this to you, that the controversy about Sri Ramakrishna's ability to view things and draw things definitely tells us one thing, that he knew what he is doing, what he was doing, and he did it with purpose. These are self-explanatory, so I will not explain this, but I will expect that if we have time towards the end and for any discussion whatsoever, then I will be quite ready to explain what is there in these pictograms. This is the first part of my submission. The second part is, which is very strange, that Sri Ramakrishna's importance on art started with his clay modeling, and he ended his life, towards the end of his life, he also left his penultimate messages in the form of art. And then comes his chosen disciple, Narendranath Datta. Which is very interesting to note, is that Narendranath Datta's father, Vishwanath Datta, had arranged for his son all kind of teaching facility, in song, in even gymnastics, in boxing, or whatever, or everything. One thing he didn't. He did not arrange any art teacher for his students, for his son. None. And what we eventually find is that Swami Vivekananda had to learn about the immense cultural heritage of his country directly by seeing it himself in person, in very close contact. When he went out on his own to see his motherland in India, working as a Parivrajak, and he went to all these places and learned about art. And his knowledge about Western art started with the fair. You know this fairground, you have seen this picture before, I suppose. This is the actual fairground of international exposition, which took place in Chicago, and the World Religious Conference was only a part of it. In that huge exhibition area, there were 200 new buildings. 200 new buildings, all built in the prevalent neoclassical style of architecture. And that was quite an eye-opener for him. In one of those buildings, which housed art of the world, he saw art of the world gathered together, which also included one representative from India, and that was Ravi Varma. He was there. Ravi Varma himself was not there, but his 10 pictures were there. But that was a huge opportunity for Swami Vivekananda, who used to visit this fair repeatedly. We all know this. And that's how his knowledge about art of his own country and of the world itself came about. But the fact remains that when he came back and left his messages in writing in so many volumes of words and books, his most important message was left for the posterity in the form of a temple of Belur Math. And in this particular temple, the message that is conveyed is of Sarvadharma Samannaya. With these few words, I believe my humble submission of the role of art in Ramakrishna movement and how it is being spread all over the world is somewhat clear. I'm sure there will be some questions. People will may not agree with me on this, but if there are any questions, I'm quite willing to answer. Thank you.
I think question answer will be after all the discussions. So thank you, Arun Babu, for giving us some very important informations. Now I invite Professor Ranjana Rai. She is the Professor Emeritus, Professor of Anthropology, University of Calcutta. And she will be speaking on some aspects of intangible cultural heritage of India.
Namaskar. The main theme of this seminar is culture and philosophy. And first, we have been listening to many of the aspects of culture separately or together with the philosophical viewpoint. But as an anthropologist, I would rather see it from the common people's viewpoint. And as you know, when we talk about culture, especially we understand two aspects. tangible and intangible. This morning we had a very nice talk about intangible aspect of the Himalayan region, and at the same time we are also listening to the tangible aspects, the temple architecture, which also involves a lot of intangible elements and showing the Indian philosophy in it. Land of our country has got a diversity. Accordingly, there are immense diversity in the culture of India. But at the same time, this land has a long history of human habitation, and that goes back to 2.5 million years ago. But since the subcontinent has got a lot of diversity in its environment, in its geography, the culture grew accordingly in a checkered pattern. There were highly civilized urban centers which grew on the plains of the rivers like Indus, Ganga, Narmada, Godavari. Then at the same time, there were folk cultures which prevailed in its forest, plateau, valleys, mountains, and hills. So the cultural heritage, to understand the basic work that is done by the anthropologists and the archaeologists, and archaeological survey together with the anthropological survey, and also that goes under the purview of heritage management. These are all done in India. The first work about the understanding of culture and protection of cultures also, of course, started in British period, and we have to remember Sir William Jones, who had started the Asiatic Society. Then the regulation for preservation actually began in 1810. Then there were these events, as you know. There were Constitution of India after the independence, and 1951 has the Act for Preservation of Ancient and Historical Monuments. Then UNESCO had a convention which was actually ratified by India in 1977 for cultural and natural heritage, and then safeguarding intangible cultural heritage started in 2005, ratified by India, and protection and promotion of cultural diversity is also important, which also was ratified in 2006. Now this will be, the major discussion will be on the intangible element, and for this reason, it's a vast thing. For this reason, I have taken a few important aspects. And first, I will begin with Ayurveda or herbal medicine. As far as archaeological evidence goes, herbal medicine was present as early as 7,000 years before present. The evidence has come from Mehergarh. Then Rig Veda also, it has given, which is the earliest Veda, it has given the mention of the medicinal plants for treatment of both human and animals. Then there are Nokul Samhita. In fact, Shatapatha Brahmana has identified 39 medical plants and which were used for treating all the different ailments that were found. And so the intangible element is also in the knowledge. We believe that wherever people live, they usually, the diseases had got a connection not only with the environment, climate, but also there are plants and other materials available in the area to combat with the type of disease that occurs in a particular region. I would also like to mention Reverend P.O. Bodding, who was a Norwegian missionary who came and walked among the Santals in Dumka region. And the book that he wrote was published by Asiatic Society in 1925, where he has talked about, the name of the book is The Santal Disease and Folklore. It's a peculiar name, Santal Disease and Folklore. Actually, he has given the concept that the tribals had about the disease. And if we go into the detail of what he has found, that still stands very true today, that people usually have got a cultural concept about the diseases. And related to the cultural concept, there are also belief system, which is again an intangible culture of our part. And there the belief system is also connected with spirituality, maybe ultimately philosophy, but of course I will restrict myself to the spirituality, which is very much connected with the understanding of the disease, and which is also very true to the present day. And not only we can talk about the plants which are used for curing the diseases, we also know that the Ayurveda has come back in a very important form as an alternative medicine. Even the Western world, who at one time, at the time of colonization, has looked down upon our indigenous medicine, they also are now falling back as an alternate means to the Ayurveda. This is very much practiced, especially for the stocks. And we have found, even people are working on the veterinary science, they have found that for the livestock, it's very difficult to take them to the veterinary center. And usually, not that all the rural places has got a veterinary center which is easily accessible. There, they are treated by the indigenous means of medicine. So, that is again being pursued by the present day people, and they are again improved upon in the laboratories. Now we come to the second sector, which is yoga. This again has come up in a very important way, and as you know, it has been from 60s, yoga became a very big thing in the Western world, but in our country, it goes as far back as Indus Valley civilization, and we do not know, may it go back farther beyond. And these are a few representation of a seal, of the famous seal. All of you know about this seal, that's Pashupatinath, and in a yogi position. And then this is an actual finding that has been made of a skeletal remain and excavated, which is about 2,700 years old and buried in a yoga position. And yoga has more and more, the modern medicine, physiotherapists, they are having going back onto the yoga for many of the psychotherapy, many of the physiotherapy, and many things. But we know when we go into our own religion, our own scripture, our own literature, we know that yoga has more than that. It has got a spiritual connection with the mind, body, and also to the absolute being. Another aspect, which is also our own performing art, which is a very refined, very fine, and we get the evidence from a very early time. Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Indus Valley civilization has not only yielded, this is a famous figure, on that side, that's the dancing girl, and there had also been found evidence of stringed instrument. So our intangible heritage not only goes to the medicine, not only to the yoga, but to the music and fine arts were also practiced, and which has been refined through ages. You can see in the picture in the middle, and the tribal people, this is taken from Santal group of our own state, West Bengal state, where they are still continuing with the form of dancing, performing art, which might have gone back long time. Then there's another important aspect, which also is a skill, a belief, which is intrinsically connected with our culture. It also has got a long history. That's the conch shell, the type of gastropod that is being used for making the conch shell. It started long back in Indus Valley civilization, maybe farther back in Mehergarh and others. And this one is a picture of a workshop at a Harappan site. All of you must be knowing about this site, that's Rakhi Gadi. And there are the raw conch shells that are found. And if you look on this side, we have mainly those which are modern technology, how they make the conch shell. And you know the conch shell has got, it's used as trumpet. And there are the Dakshinavart shells which are used for purification of water for puja purposes. And the most important one are the shell bangles. These shell bangles have a ritualistic value. It is intrinsically connected with our spirituality, and these also go back very long time back, and you can see a skeletal remain from the Harappan culture, which is buried. The skeleton has got wearing the bangle, conch shell bangles, and these are the modern ones. And the way people has worked, I'm very fortunate to have students who have worked on this conch shell making of the modern, and then compared it with the way those were being made earlier time period. And it was found the skill of making conch shell, the designs on the conch shell bangles and design on the conch shells are very similar. They are continuing. So conch shell is one important aspect which has got a spiritual value, a cultural value, and also the making, manufacturing is an skill which is still continuing. And usually, as you know, which is very important in our part, we get it's caste based also. So some of the group became so skillful that they belong to a specific caste, and we call them, in our state, we call them Shakhari. Then the last one which I want to talk about is the metallurgy. Metal also came a long time back in our country. The first metal discovered was copper. But copper stayed for a very short time period. And what came? The alloy of copper. And those are bronze and brass. But the most important thing is that bronze and brass has got a somewhat difference. In the bronze has got mainly tin and copper as alloy, whereas brass has got zinc. Undoubtedly, following the colonials, we were also thinking that ours were also bronze. But what I have the fortune also to get some metallurgical analysis done, and we found that no, it's brass. And many of the places it has yielded that ours is brass. Now that's brass because zinc is very easily available, tin is not in this part of the world. And what they did, you see that dancing figure, it is made by a process which is known as lost wax process. And these are all the modern ones which are also being made in the same process. Now why are these continuing? Because these are very much related to ritual. These are not only the gods and goddess figures that are made, but especially in some places, at the time of marriage or at the time of worship of the deities, it has to be those made by the same process, not the factory-made ones. Then, lastly, I come to this, and all of you know what it is, and it's made of copper, and copper has come for the first time. And if think of anything as pure to use in our worship, to use for some offering, some votive, we have to go back to copper. Nothing is more auspicious, than pure than copper. So that copper has come more than 8,000 or maybe some more, because dates are going back and back. That has come up. We are following this, and same shape of koshakuchi is found in Harappan civilization, and we are still using it. And it has not one part only of the cultural heritage of our culture, which is a tangible aspect, but in it we find the intangible element of our belief system, how we regard our past. So unknowingly, all of us are carrying the values of our intangible culture, and together with, we cannot distinguish or separate the philosophy or the spirituality of Indian culture or Hinduism, or maybe any community. We are anthropologists. We work with all communities, and we found that whatever may be, there may be Christian communities, there may be Muslim communities, but you will find some part of the cultural element which are binding all the Indians together. And maybe they follow also some kind of philosophy, some kind of belief system which is deep rooted in our soil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Rai. You have directed our attention to some of the intangible aspects which are deeply rooted with our culture. So now I request Professor Joy Raman Suresh, former director, Gyanojyoti College, North Bengal University, to deliver his speech. He will be speaking on Naga Puja in India. খুব সুন্দর বলেছেন, খুব সুন্দর। আর আমরা খুব সত্যি কথাই একটা প্র্যাকটিক্যাল জিনিস।
খোলা থাকবে। A very good afternoon to all of you, respected Swamijis, learned panelists, learned chairperson, and learned audience. The topic I have chosen for today's discussion is Naga Puja, and I have chosen this topic specifically because Naga Puja is not only Indian but also pan-Indian, and also it is global. So I have divided my discussion under three heads. One is the evolution of the concept of worship. Second is how it is practiced outside India, and third aspect is how it is practiced in India. So for want of time, I will not be discussing the global aspect in a detailed way. I will just confine to one example. Just let me take up the concept of worship. The appearance of man, Homo sapiens, on the planet Earth marked the beginning of history. Primitive man was a hunter-gatherer who roamed in the jungles with sharp stones and implements to hunt animals for food, and also to protect himself from attack, and also to dig out roots and tubers for food. He had no family, and he roamed the jungle guided by his instincts. The dawn of civilization brought in conspicuous changes in his lifestyle. He started realizing his dependence on environment and to living beings, both animals and plants, for his survival. He also realized the importance of water, air, fire, etc. for his healthy living. This important realization brought in a triangular relationship, namely man, environment, and living beings. This is indeed a fascinating and very important realization, as they are interdependent for maintaining biodiversity and ecological balance. Civilized man started respecting nature and worshipped it as God. He feared natural phenomena like lightning, thunder, storm, etc., and started worshipping them like moon worship, river, rain, fire, hills, trees, and all other objects of nature, and he could realize his dependence on them for his survival and the crucial role they play in his life. The civilized man thus initiated the idea of worship to appease the supernatural powers which provide him essential needs for his survival. This led to the birth of animism, or nature worship. As days passed by, civilized man embraced Hinduism. With the birth of Hinduism, Hindu mythology also entered his life. Entered the life of common man. He started worshipping gods and goddesses and followed Hindu mythology in toto, which depicted various animals as vehicles of gods, sometimes as avatars, sometimes worn as ornaments, and so on. With this god-animal association, the various animals became objects of worship and enjoyed special status among common man. Animals like elephant, lion, tiger, cow, buffalo, etc. Came to be associated with various gods and goddesses, and also became part of Hindu mythology and origin myth. Besides animals, various plants were also associated with Hindu mythology and religion, and were used in pujas or worshipped it as it is, like pipal tree, neem tree, tulsi, java fool, and lotus, bael, etc. were used in various functions and also associated with various gods and goddesses. With this association, there emerged a shift in the man's outlook towards living beings, both plants and animals. This resulted in the reduction of the killing of animals and also cutting of trees for monetary gains, and helped in the conservation of nature. Also, living beings became objects of worship. Although many animals and plants are worshipped by the Hindus, I have taken only one example, namely the Nagas, which are worshipped, and I have captioned in my paper as Naga Puja. See, there are several stories about the serpent worship outside India, but I am just giving you one example, that is the Hopi Indians who worship serpents. What they do is, it's a 9-day festival done in the South American continent, and the Hopi tribes, they catch snakes, rattlesnakes, and keep it in isolation and in a holy place, which are purified every day and fed. And during the 9-day festival, the Hopi tribes, they perform different religious functions, and ultimately they go to perform and ultimately they take these snakes in their mouth, and after a holy wash they just carry it to the holy place, and they say that they are conveying the message of the people's requirements to God through the snakes. So this, and they make a dance, they call it snake dance, and it is done for 9 days continuously. And there the snakes act as messengers of these Hopi people, and they send the messages to God to pray for rain, harvest, good harvest, and also for monetary benefits. So this is done in the Hopi Islands. Now we come to the Indian tradition as it is performed here. India has a pedigree of rich cultural and religious history. Mythology, religion, and folk belief are intricately interwoven in India since the earliest times. The inferences for various acts were interpreted in terms of their beliefs. Of the several examples available in the Indian society, I am taking up Naga Puja, as the Nagas are part and parcel of the Hindu religion and mythology since the earliest times. In fact, that Hinduism and Hindu mythology are interwoven and cannot be studied in isolation, for they are inseparable. Although there are varieties of snakes available, only the Naga is worshipped by the Hindus, and only Nagas or Cobra is associated with Hindu religion. The reason is that Naga is depicted in Hindu mythology as the vehicle, seat, ornament of various gods. It is depicted as the bed of Vishnu in Anantasayana, adorning the neck of Shiva, for sometimes in the arms, and sometimes as the sacred thread of Ganesha, and also with Kartikeya. These are associated, and so the cobra is worshipped in many places as a protector of infant Krishna, and also in Kalinganardana as Krishna to stand on its hood, and in several mythologies associated with the religion. In recent times, Naga is also associated with the Shirdi Sai Baba, as they say that Shirdi Sai Baba takes the form of a snake and comes on Thursdays, and people worship him in that form also. We have a peculiar mythology that describes the churning of the great ocean to cull out the Amrita, where the mountain Meru is used as the churning instrument, and Vasuki, the snake Vasuki, is used for rope, and this Vasuki is form of Naga. So this is used, and in this process of churning, Vasuki vomited poison, and to save the Devatas from catastrophe, Shiva consumes that poison, and to save his life, Parvati presses the throat, and he becomes the Nilakanta, which is known in Hindu mythology, and it is known to everyone. Similarly, in the Hindu astrological system, there are two things. One is the Rahu, and the other is the Ketu. Ketu is the snake, and it plays a vital role in humans' well-being. So anybody having Ketu dosham has to perform certain rituals to ward off the evil effects that may fall on him. In South India, people generally undertake pilgrimage to Kalahasti to perform certain rituals, and also to deposit a small copper plate or a silver plate with the sign of a Naga, and they put it in the temple, and they believe that by doing so, the effect of Naga is removed. The Ketu effect is nullified. Then we have several folklores relating to Naga worship. I am just taking two. Sharpa Shastra narrates the following. See, once there lived a king by name Janame Janasya. He had a curse that he will be dead by a snake bite. So he thought that he should get rid of this, and so he wanted to destroy the entire Naga kingdom. So what he did, he performed a jagga, which is also depicted here. I'll show you later. So in that what he did is that before he started the killing act, he performed the Jagga and he Mahayagya, and also then he started killing. That time, one of the mother Nagas, she went to pray to Brahma and wanted to get his blessings. So Brahma told me that this birth you may be getting killed, but you will be worshipped in the next birth. So before this mother got killed, she just went and put its young one in the nostril of a holy Kamandalam. So the mother got killed, and ultimately the king thought that he has done his job. He has destroyed the animal kingdom, the entire Naga kingdom, and so he is safe. But when he was taking rest, the young one sneaked out of the nostril and bit him, and he dies. So from that stage onwards, the Naga kingdom again revived, and ultimately they came to be worshipped. Today we are worshipping Nagas because of that Janamejaya's Jaggu. Similarly, we have the great soul that gave them their life was Astiga. Yet another story which we know is one villager was working in his farm, and he was digging a pit. And when he was digging, a small Naga child was sleeping there, and it got hit by the iron stick. So it died on the spot. The mother got angry. The mother came back and she saw the young one is dead. So she wanted to kill the farmer's family to take revenge. So when the mother was trying to kill all the members of the family, including the farmer, dies. So the snake then came to know that one of the daughters of the farmer is married and she is living in the next village. So she wanted to kill her also. So she takes a route to the daughter's house, and where she saw the daughter is performing Naga Puja. So this mother was satisfied that she has got respect for the Nagas. So she leaves her, and on her prayer she also gets back the life of all the members of the farmer's family. These are the two stories. And in South India, in North India we have Naga Panchami being observed, and in South India we have several beliefs with this Naga Puja. For instance, it is used as a source of fertility cult, it is a source of knowledge, it is prayed for good agriculture. In many houses these are kept. For instance, in a family, if there are number of children and if they die after birth, then they take a vow saying that in case the child stays, then I'll keep the name Nag as a prefix to the name. So you can see in South India number of names with the prefix like Nagaraja, Naganandini. Even Mr. Nagasamy may be getting his name like that. Because this Naga prefix is always used. And you get Naga temples, huge temples in South India, especially in places like Nagarkoil and Nagapattinam. These temples are there, and you can see many people having this name also. So these are quite familiar, and when their prayers are answered, they make a small stone structure with the two Nagas, and they put it in the temple, or sometimes they keep it in the house also, and they pray it, and their prayers are answered. And there is one very peculiar example is in the case of theft. They have got a very firm belief that in villages these village guards are there, and these people, they never go to police station. When any theft is happening in the village or in anybody's house, valuables are lost, they go to the village guard, they tie one's chit with the description of the stolen property or lost property, and they leave it at the feet of the god. And the god, it seems, he takes the form of a serpent, and he traces the lost property and retrieves it to the owner. This is believed, and the very huge temple is there, where near Chidambaram temple there is a temple called Paramarayar temple, which is quite popular. You can see it in the gazetteer also. It is described, and it is one of the best temples where people go and visit. It's open only on Sundays. It's not open on other days. People go to that temple to pray for retrieving the stolen properties. People have more faith in the temple than in the police station. So they always go to the temple and pray, and in most cases they are answered, their grievances are redeemed. So they have more faith in this belief. So the people go to this temple in large number, and the population, people are thronging the temple in large numbers. In Kerala, it is also done in a big way. There's a separate temple near Trivandrum called Sarpakavu, which is a huge temple where people worship it, but the way they do puja is the tantric way of worship in Kerala. So the Naga Puja is performed in different parts of the country with slight variations. Man's fascination with the Nagas is illustrated by a number of beliefs, myths, legends and folk tales. In other religions also, snakes are often looked upon as creatures with extraordinary mystical powers. In general, they are always associated with fertility, knowledge, prosperity, protection, truth, trust and above all for keeping the promise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Suresh. You have directed our attention to how this Naga Puja is being performed not only in India but even outside India. So it is quite interesting to know all these informations. Thank you. Now I invite Professor Shati Bhattacharya to deliver her lecture. She is the Associate Professor, Government College of Art and Craft, Calcutta, and she will be speaking on fearful symmetry, representation of Kali in Indian art.
Revered monks, the scholars on the podium, and the erudite guests, I am indeed thankful to you all for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you. My paper, as you see, talks about a fearful symmetry. The words borrowed from William Blake's poem aptly describes the rationale behind the image of Kali with her fearful exterior and the calmness residing within. Again, the word representation is noteworthy as it denotes a kind of recreation of what already exists. In this case, the existence of the perception of the power of Kali by the sages and its representation by the artist. In other words, the hypothesis in this case is that there exists a symbiotic relation between the Sadaqa or the sages and the Shilpi or the artist. Let me explain it further. It goes without saying that the needs and insecurities of human beings, born out of their incapability to solve the mystery of existence, has led to the search of the force within. And this, in its turn, has given birth to the creation of different icons as manifestation of different powers of the Supreme Being or Creator. God in His infinity, God as an abstract concept, can be conceived and professed by the sages and monks, but the ordinary human beings often find it challenging to grapple the existence of a non-emblematic entity. Hence, the common mass of people try to realize the presence of the Supreme Being into units of powers instead of one majestic whole, and find it easier to have an image as a manifestation of the divine power. Hence, the Dhyana Murti or the vision of God envisaged by the saints are executed by the artist, and the images, whether created in clay or metal or painted on paper or clothes, become the emblem of the intangible power. The power within is suggested with the help of a number of pictograms, and while the common people see just the deity, the spiritually advanced can unearth layers of significance and correlate them with the myths and beliefs associated with that particular icon. The images are created directly by the thoughts and emotion of the artist, and indirectly they turn into exclusive signifiers of the various aspects of the absolute and the eternal, because of their reaction to the Dhyana mantra ingrained in their thoughts and consciousness. In this context, I'd like to remind the audience who are already familiar with the poem Kali the Mother by Swami Vivekananda. You can read it over there, where he describes a fearful symmetry between the power, the energy, the ferocity, the cruelty, and the tremendous love for humanity, the love of a mother. Dance in destruction, dance, to him the mother comes. An incident from the life of Swami Vivekananda can be recalled here. He had requested a famous painter of the time, Ranada Prasad Gupta, to make a painting based on this particular poem. But he failed to do so and apologized profusely, saying that he cannot share Swamiji's vision. Nandalal Bose, a famous artist and highly inspired by the notions of Sri Ramakrishna, afterwards made a painting on the same poem, which I'll be showing you later. At this point, however, I'd like to quote from the artist's writing, where he refers to the image of Kali and says, "The Sadaqa who first conceived the image of Kali," I quote, "was an artist despite being a Sadaqa. And the artist who first carved the image was a Sadaqa despite being a Shilpi." Tini Shilpi hoileo sadhok. Kali, as we all know, is the invigorating personification of the primeval energy in the cosmic drama of existence. According to Swami Abhedananda, the Vedic goddess Rati in the course of time became transformed to Kali. In Mahabharata, there are references to Kali. In Swaptik Parva, there is a reference to a goddess all smeared in blood and creating carnage. And she is also referred to as Kala the goddess. In Devi Mahatma, she is referred to as originating from the brow of Durga during her battle with the demons Shumbho and Nishumbho. In India, the original mother cults have been preserved and eventually given a very high status throughout her history. To the great sages of India, the manifested energy, the soul of things, emerged as reciprocal with that of a woman, a mother. The vision of God as mother finds one of its best expressions in the image of Kali, the mother, the form which is perfect blend of a frightening exterior and a benevolent core. Like majority of the Indian icons, here too one finds a simultaneous presence of this twofold facet, lurking at the soul of human existence. On the symbolic plane, this image is a typical manifestation of the union between the inert male and the activated female energy, the Purusha and the Prakriti. The way Sri Ramakrishna explained the form of Divine Mother in her twin aspects, merging into one ultimate reality, would make the innate concept behind these visual manifestations quite easy to understand. And I quote, "These are only two aspects, male and female, of the reality, existence, bliss, absolute." Hence, according to this great saint, Kali is just another manifestation of Brahma. Brahma, the supreme creative energy, that blissful spirit which flows through the cosmos, leading to the supreme transcendental joy, has been identified as the Rasa, the essence of existence. Rasa Vaisa. The creations by the artist in appreciation of the creation by God also considers Rasa to be the soul of human creations. Nahi rasad bina kaschidartha pravartate. Hence the essence of art is called Brahma Swado Sahodara. This is considered as the outcome of a fusion of the spirit, a total agreement of perception and expression which leads to a transcendental joy. Therefore, it becomes obvious that the image of Kali would have in it a reflection of all the 9 variations of rasa leading to the Paramananda. Without going into details, I'd remind the listeners how a combination of different bhavas, that is Thai bhava, Vibhava, Anubhava and Babhichari bhava, combine together to create the rasa. This is relevant because all these visual representations, we find the predominance of a particular rasa which is imaginatively integrated with the other secondary rasa. Without going into further detail, I just would like to remind you that Sai Bhava is a permanent emotion that culminates into rasa, and Vibhava makes it special, Bhava Vishishtata. And Anubhava is what follows. And Sanchari Bhava are the emotions, the fleeting emotions that we can feel that are hardly perceptible. I, however, would try to emphasize on the predominant rasa in the paintings that I am going to show. Not only paintings, I have just selected randomly from an array of not so much well-known paintings from all over, paintings and of course some terracotta panels are there, and to show that how the different artists in different parts of India had conceived of the image of the mother goddess and how they have depicted them, portrayed them. Now, among the rasa, the adi or primary rasa is Shringara, and the bhava is Rati. Now this is a painting by Ravi Varma. I start with the painting by Ravi Varma, and I would like you just to keep the image in your mind because we'll come back to it later. The black south-facing Kali standing on the, here it's blue, on the recumbent form of Shiva is often explained, next slide please, as Bipratibha Rati. Here Shiva is white. He is a symbol of Sattaguna, and that's why he is white, and this is a Pahari painting, and they are seen in copulating, and this position is symbolical of the union between Purusha and Prakriti, a cessation of duality where all the apparent differences cease to be, and there is just a comprehensive abundance. Now either Shiva or Shakti is real without the other. Now here we can see that how the calm within has been expressed in the expression on the face, through the expression of the face, and as if there is a pervading joy, and what I was saying as Anubhava, here we can say that that feeling of hasya, that is the Anubhava here. Now, Vatsala, that is the love of the mother for her children too, is another variation of this love. Kali's essential mother, the universe with its cycle of perpetual creation, becomes an emblem of her motherhood. She gives birth to the cosmos as she holds the male principle within herself. Kali, the mother, is taken to be the highest object of adoration. Now we come to the next rasa, that is Hasya rasa, and there is no painting here, but in a form as Bhadrakali, she represents anything benevolent and joyous, and I couldn't show it to you because I had some mechanical problem with my computer in the morning, but there is, I'm just narrating, there is a Kangra painting where we see that Shiva, a white Shiva, is playing the Damaru, and the black Kali is dancing in front of in the rhythm of that Damaru, and you can the joy is almost palpable, and you see all the dead bodies around, but still you can feel that it's just a play. And this is a particularly favorite representation of mine. This is from a panel in a temple in East Midnapur, and you just see the expression on the face of the Kali, and I'm always, whenever I look at it, I'm reminded of that line, Khelichoe Bisholoe. This is as if she is enjoying her dance of destruction. Now the scene, the next slide please. The scene of destruction portrayed here has apparently a tinge of pathetic in it, hence can be considered as an example of the Karuna rasa. But in actuality, it is Karuna because it indicates how often the world falls a prey to the inner darkness. You see that she is swallowing the elephant and she is holding a human figure in her hand. And the inner darkness of greed, hatred, jealousy and other tamasic traits, and illustrates how the activating element in nature lead downward to tamas. And that is what, how despite knowing everything, we fall a prey to this world of illusion, and that is the Karuna part of the whole thing. Rautra and Vira are often complementary rasa. The former has an energy at its core, while the latter originates from the Bhava Vira. Kali, the supreme goddess, is a source of all energies. You can feel, once again, in this sculpture, you can feel in that the energy, the innate energy, it doesn't have maybe any outward expression, but the condensed energy can easily be felt just by looking at this photograph. So, the dance of Kali is an expression of the primordial energy, and the valor and strength she shows in her game of destruction is indeed an evidence of fearless boldness of Vira rasa. The raised sword the raised sword in her hand symbolizes the energy with which she cuts the threads of Maya. Next slide. No doubt her tongue lolling outside, or this is an image of Kali as Kala. The Kala that swallows everything, the Kala that, the oft quoted line, Kalo Harati Nimesha Sarvang. So this is the image of Kala, Mahakali. And no doubt her tongue lolling outside, next slide, or ferociously lapping up the blood of Raktabija. Here actually she is lapping up the blood of Raktabija. And her garland of 51 severed heads creates a fearful impression, as I've titled the slide Vayanaka Rasa, and gives rise to the Vayanaka Rasa. Yet, in actuality, it represents the 50 fundamental vibrations in the universe, the 50 alphabets of Sanskrit. Thus, it signifies the necessity of that supreme knowledge that would free a human being from this world of illusion. The severed head in her left hand also is a fearful sight, but it points towards the need of destroying the ego-bound self. Next slide. Now here also we see how she is enjoying the carnage, and around her waist she wears a girdle of human hands that appears. This is a very well-known panel from a temple that is familiar to all of us. This is a panel from the temple at Atpur. Around her waist she wears a girdle of human hands, and that appears terrible at the first sight. Yet the significance is not hard to understand. I hope many of you have already guessed that hands are the principal instruments, and thus imply the action and reaction of karma and accumulated action. And if you just remember the mantra that Kali Kali Mahakali Kali ke Papo Harini, so that is why she wears a girdle. The way she is holding and swallowing the human beings is a simple reminder of the way to freedom to be attained as a fruit of karmic action. Like if you take refuge to her, she would be there to release us from our karmic actions. Now, next slide. Now, this is Adbhuta Rasa, because in this painting there is a symmetry that we have been talking about. There you can see, I can't point, there you can see Mahamaya standing at the back. She is a benign, benevolent figure, and here in front you can see the Kali. She is killing and swallowing, she is attacking. So it's the same. This is the Adbhut Rasa because it's one and the same figure. This is the exterior, and that is the hidden self of Mahamaya. So her three eyes indicate the past, present and the future. Her assuring smile and white teeth stand for Sattva-guna. Her red lolling tongue implies the Rajas, and the activating force of nature destroys darkness, inertia, that is Tamas. Once these implications are understood, we feel how the very image holds in it the suggestion that she is Triguna Rahita. Then the last three, I've got 3 slides for the Shanta Rasa, and this is a painting from the Pahari area. This is a painting from Guler. Now in all of these, show the other 2 please. This is the painting by Nandalal Bose that I wanted to show, and sorry, the other one can't be shown. I'm extremely sorry. In all these visuals, the goddess appears in perfect poise. In this, she is changeless, limitless, primordial power, acting in the great drama, spelling the fear of her children in one hand and exhorting the spiritual strength with the other. And one is reminded of the sloka from Devi Mahatma, "Thou art terrible, thou art eternal, thou art the moon and the moon's light and happiness itself." And this is a perfect portraiture of Shantarasha. Now this painting by Nandalal Bose, I put it at the end because we had started with the painting of Ravi Varma, who was just a few decades senior to Nandalal Bose, and he is considered to be a modern painter. So in Ravi Varma's painting, the emphasis was on the iconic form, more on the exterior. But in this painting, this becomes not this one. Just show Nandalal Bose's painting. But in Nandalal Bose's painting, we can call that a Bhavachitra we can call it a Bhavachitra. He has perceived the inner potency, the inner power of Kali, and he has managed in his own way to express the combination of the fearful symmetry, and that is why it has this otherworldly look, and I'm sure you can see the lotus under her feet as if the artist is offering it to Kali, the mother. Now the images or visual recreations that suggest a journey towards infinity, by decoding the symbols and appreciating their full symbolism, we can realize the philosophy and aesthetic ideals of the creators of these images. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Rati, for your very interesting audiovisual presentation. We are running behind the schedule, so now I request Dr. Debashish Naik, Director, Center for Heritage Management, Ahmedabad University, for his talk on the role of community in preserving and managing historic cities of India. Professor Debashish Naik, Dr. Debashish Naik.
Sound.
খুব সুন্দর সবগুলো এত ইন্টারেস্টিং আসলে পরবর্তী হয় না টাইম বড্ড কম তো জাস্টিফিকেশন হয় না আর আমাদের তো আরও সুবিধা ছিল দেখতে পাচ্ছি না আমরা সত্যি দেখতে পাচ্ছি না এত ভালো ভালো ছবিগুলো দেখা গেল না
I think I'm in a tough run of after so many brilliant speakers and so much knowledge has been there. In fact, I'm basically an architect, but my whole concern was that India has fascinating historic cities, but this is really getting deteriorated, and we have so much of knowledge, so much of understanding about our mythology. Every city has a story, every city has so much of research done, but why our towns and cities are getting deteriorated? So my whole journey is that, but before that I'd like to really thank Ramakrishna Mission, Golpark and Babulal Maharaj that to give me the opportunity to come and share my experience and journey. Actually 20 years back I was invited by Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation to go and do something with the heritage of the city. And like every city, all of you must be traveling, that you realize that the citizen who lives there, they really do not know their city. And if you want to improve and the culture and the heritage of a place, the citizen must first understand where they are living, what is their strength, and I mean who they are themselves, how to connect to their own history, their own past, and looking towards a brighter future. What I'm going to do today is basically, in fact, you must be aware that Ahmedabad recently became the India's first UNESCO recognized World Heritage City. In fact, the day it was become the India's first World Heritage City, I was in Varanasi, and I was with the municipality of Varanasi, and they got a phone call from Mr. Venkata Naidu's office in Delhi that Ahmedabad, they are asking that Ahmedabad has become a World Heritage City, why not Varanasi? So it's a very natural question. I mean, why not Jaipur? Why not Jaisalmer. We have a fascinating, amazing cities in India, but till today, there was not a single city was recognized by the UNESCO. And how come Ahmedabad become? So this is my journey to Ahmedabad, and like I'm a total outsider there. And the last 20, so I'll just quickly go through this whole process, that how the journey of Ahmedabad city and how the participation of the citizen, how the research organization of the city is a total, in fact, if you look at today's Varanasi, it is only built by, it was destroyed so many times. It was recently built by the Ahalabai or the Maratha power. But Ahmedabad it's just completed its 600 years, and it was never destroyed, because whenever they got attacked, citizens always went outside the wall and negotiated and paid them off. So Ahmedabad was never destroyed. So what happened that last 600 years, it has always accumulated energy, the same families. And in fact, when I first landed up in Ahmedabad, I started listening to stories, listening to research paper, and then realized that how to connect Ahmedabad citizen to their own city. So I'm quickly, how much the time will permit, I'll quickly go through this process. There are small films, I mean half a second or half a minute film to show you actually, and right now I started my journey in Calcutta, and in the North Calcutta, the Sultanate Utsav, the Sultanate Parishad, the Shohabaja Rajbari, those were my earlier days, I mean 20 years back, the whole journey happened. But we needed a lot of policy change. Because if you want to restore a whole city, you need a government of central government. So we thought that if Gujarat may be an interesting way to connect to the central government, so that a lot of policy could be changed. So this is an interesting journey of how you do researcher, connect researcher with the actual real life citizen.
The walled city of Ahmedabad is more than 600 years old. It has some of the finest Indian Islamic monuments and exquisite Hindu and Jain temples. The intricately carved wooden havelis in the traditional neighborhoods, popularly known as pors, are of World Heritage value. Due to neglect, commercialization, and several social reasons, the old city was going through a rapid decline. Since 1996, Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation has initiated a people-oriented movement to revive this heritage city.
So one of the important things is the branding of a city. So one day I saw a Discovery Channel, people came and made a 1-minute film which was supposed to be showing all the international flights landing in Ahmedabad. So how you built up the image of the Ahmedabad citizen about their own city.
પોર શબ્દ એ સંસ્કૃત શબ્દ પ્રતોલ્યુ પરથી આવેલો છે. એનો અર્થ એ થાય છે કે વિવિધ સમૂહના લોકો એક સાથે એક જગ્યાએ રહે. પોળને 1 કે 2 પ્રવેશદ્વાર હોય છે અને તેની સાથે જુદી જુદી ગલીઓ અને શાખાઓ જોડાયેલી હોય છે. પોળની શરૂઆત 11મી સદીમાં પાટણથી શરૂ થઈ. કાચકલાની હવેલીઓ એટલી સુંદર હતી કે તે સમયના સમાજને અનુરૂપ હતી. આ મકાનોની અંદર ચૂનાની દિવાલ હોય છે અને તે ખૂબ જ મજબૂત હોય છે. પંખીઓને ચણ માટે બાંધવામાં આવેલા ચબૂતરાઓ પંખીઓ પણ કુટુંબના એક સભ્ય છે તેમ દર્શાવે છે કે જ્યાં લોક ઉત્સવ પણ ઉજવાતા હતા. પોળમાં રહેતા વિવિધ કુટુંબો એક વિશાળ પરિવારની ભાવનાથી એક સાથે.
So normally I put a pause in my presentation to the community just to show that this is already more than 10 years old film. The Discovery Channel coming and recognizing Ahmedabad, because otherwise no one knows what is Ahmedabad. They have no idea, no branding, no recognition. And I started using all the myths. There's a story of when Ahmed Shah was hunting in the Sabarmati river front. His dogs are being chased by the local rabbits. So he decided to build a city there. These are all stories. But I started using those stories and connecting the citizens. So my presentation is actually the whole story of how you connect citizens to their own city. Then we found out that the oldest painting done by a Dutch painter in 1672, which is called the first image of the city. And I popularized this painting. This is the walled city. In fact, this is one of the most intact, almost 5 square kilometer walled city of Ahmedabad. Is a totally Indian planning. I mean, all our Bombay, Calcutta, Chennai, they are mostly colonial city planning. So we have these neighborhoods. There are hundreds of 600 neighborhoods called Pol, which came from a Sanskrit word Pratuli, and totally based on Vastu principles. And most of the buildings built out of wood and beautiful carved, because they have a trade with China. And then what I did, we started this heritage walk, which is to make citizens understand their own city, which has been happening every day for last 20 years. And how it was launched, it is a mandir to masjid. And the launching ceremony was very interesting. See, you could see that how different forces, different municipal corporation, political leader, all common citizen, all brought to a stage. So this is a very interesting diagram where you can see that heritage walk has been used as a catalyst to connect and deliver lot of stakeholder in the city. And from where the walk started, we started designing from the municipality all these beautiful posters. And there's a walk within the temple complex. It's the first temple of Swaminarayan Sampradaya. And all the projects you'll see, none of them are funded by the government. It is all funded by the community. That is a beautiful. Like there is a poet, Kavi Dalpatram. His birth year and Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar's birth year is the same, 1820. And in fact, 21st January is going to be his birthday. And all these statues I have created totally by community funding. So a lot of poets, statue of Gujarati poets are being done, and people really enjoy and support this process. And every houses has got rainwater harvesting system, that then a bird feeder, and this has been restored by community. The interesting is, whenever we did a project, we put a poster on the side so that the community get educated in the process, and media played a major role. We have trained hundreds of young journalists to write about how to write about heritage, and a lot of research material is supplied to them. So today, no Gujarati newspaper can come out without a story of heritage. We also created children's game. We have created this children's book and actual stories, animation films, and like we engaged the artists of the city so that they started painting.
भारत का हर गांव, हर शहर अपने आप में कुछ ना कुछ इतिहास संजोए हुए है, और अहमदाबाद भी इससे अलग नहीं है। यहाँ की खासियत है यहाँ की हजारों हजार ऐतिहासिक हेरिटेज इमारतें, जो कि कुछ लोग मानते हैं कि पूरे भारतवर्ष में सबसे ज्यादा हैं। आइए देखते हैं किस तरीके से अहमदाबाद के लोग जुटे हैं अपने इतिहास को बचाने के लिए, और ऐसा करने में उनको क्या-क्या दिक्कतें पेश आ रही हैं। Christian, what primarily made you to associate yourself with this old city of Ahmedabad?
I was very impressed by Ahmedabad for two reasons. The first reason is city planning of old Ahmedabad, old the city. It's very, very interesting with the poles. French-Indian work is not only French work. We are working together and try to find solutions how to preserve city planning.
आइए बात करते हैं एक ऐसे परिवार से जो इन रिस्टोर्ड मकानों में रहते हैं।
एक्चुअली क्या था, ये मकान पूरे 25 साल से अनयूज था, और हमने हेरिटेज डिपार्टमेंट का कांटेक्ट किया।
सभी लोगों ने बोला था कि क्या देख के मकान लिया है। जब ये हुआ तो सभी को मालूम पड़ा कि कितना अच्छा हुआ है।
So we restored around 300 Havelis with the community participation. We have around 12,000 buildings in the list, and you can see that how these buildings and these projects have been restored. You can see the before after. I mean, the people could really see the change, and we have taken many other poets, many other. So what we have done is we identified, improved the community spaces where there's a performance can happen, theater can happen, and then it's totally funded by the community. And we have restored many Havelis into a restaurant, like bread and breakfast places. This slide is very important, that this is all visiting card of people who have taken heritage as their business, as a startup. And we have now hundreds of new businesses, because Gujaratis love business, and at the end of the day, it makes sense. So how the researcher and people and community come together and started making heritage as their profession, heritage management as their profession. And one day I took 100 builder. Builder are supposed to be the most enemy of the heritage because they pull down old buildings. But in Ahmedabad, I took 100 builders for heritage walk. First time they discovered their own city. They formed their own foundation. They started giving award. And many of the builders, I took them to France, in Italy and Spain to show them how European cities are doing their work. And then many of them come back, and you can see that they have taken up houses and started restoring them. Is absolute people's initiative. And we have started these community meetings, and we have various programs in the old city. So these are the municipal commissioner giving lecture in the old city about how to preserve heritage. It's unbelievable. And we started heritage festivals, and we 19 to 25 November every year last almost more than 10 years these festivals are happening. This is a Sufi festival. We have now 10 walks. One is that how Gandhiji came to Ahmedabad, how Bengalis supported that time to build, there's a Bengal house, who Gujaratis taught Bengalis how to make textiles, and they came back here, built textile mills in Calcutta. So how that thing happened. And there's a children's walk, there are craft walk, there are Jain, there are more than 100 Jain temples in the old city. Jain walk, this is the Jain putt which has been used, and this got replicated in all over the India. Now we have around more than 50 heritage walk all over India using the same method to replicate, and we have this initiative to set up India Center in different country. This is with Spain. We donated, Ahmedabad has donated this facade of the Haveli to Spain. We have a business now. We have done this Asian World Heritage Cities Conference, which is a turning around point when Ahmedabad started believing that Ahmedabad also can apply for World Heritage status. There is a Times of India book has been published about all the stories published last 20 years. And ultimately, the policy happened. There's the first heritage plaza in the old city. It eventually triggered off setting up a center for heritage management, because we realized that we need heritage managers. And this is the first international conference. We have short courses on various heritage walks. And we have a program with the European Union to start heritage startup business. And here you can see our student actually did a restored old fountain, did a theater, and ultimately that fountain has been reinstalled by the mayor and our first batch of students in the old city. And here you can see how Ahmedabad become World Heritage. And this is the Ahmedabad was actually founded by 4 Ahmeds, and is inspired by Manik Baba, a Gorakh Sampradaya, Nath Sampradaya monk. And the family we have discovered, and they started celebrating birthday of Ahmedabad, and now it has become official. And every year, this didn't exist, it's been created, and you can see that every year the birthday of Ahmedabad in 26 February is happening. So how this is interesting, that how this whole process of connecting citizens, empower them and connect them with the administration, and by telling stories you can really revive a city, and is actually that it is becoming a World Heritage City. So I feel that Calcutta can easily go through the journey. Calcutta is much, much richer and much more possibility, but as a citizen we have so much of knowledge, we must come together and look at it, the possibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nayak. It is an eye-opener. We should also take initiative and to improve our own cities. So Ahmedabad should be taken as a model. Now we are running behind the schedule, so I would like to thank all the panelists for their brilliant presentations, and we would have certainly liked to hear them more, but since their time is not at our disposal, so we have to conclude this session, and there will be a tea break for
15 minutes.
There is one more session. After that,
no, it's written that this now. Oh, so now there will be another. Oh.
according to the card, it is 5:30 p.m. Maybe there is some type of virus.
So now we disperse for this session, and there will be another academic session after that. Thank you.
We have the fourth academic session, in fact the final academic session immediately after this. And this academic session will be coordinated by Professor Shorty Chatterjee. So may we please request you, ma'am, to kindly be seated. We have two speakers in this session. Professor Joy Shen from IIT Kharagpur will talk about the logical and analytical aspects of Indian culture, followed by Professor Somiran Chandra Chakraborty, former Director, School of Vedic Studies, Rabindra Bharati University, who will talk on spirituality in Indian culture and philosophy. May we request Professor Joy Shen and Professor Somiran Chandra Chakraborty to kindly come up on the stage. This session will be coordinated by Professor Shorty Chatterjee, who was the head of the Department of English at Jadavpur University and still very much active, as you can very well see.
মাইকটা মনে হয় দেয় না দিয়েছে না ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে আচ্ছা একটু স্পিকারদের সম্বন্ধে পরিচয়